It is so frustrating when our kids don't listen. Hi, I'm Ashley, your Candidly Connected coach, and I support parents who know there has to be a better, more enjoyable way to parent our kids, but they're feeling stuck in the yelling and the shaming and the punishments. Okay, because I am the Candidly Connected coach, I'm going to be super honest here. My kids not listening is a huge trigger for me. Asking my kids to do something and hearing, no, I don't feel like it, always sends my body into a tight, I don't really care if you feel like it state. Excuse me. And if I'm not paying attention to that feeling, I usually respond with some ridiculous comparison like, well, I don't really feel like making you dinner. But sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. This reaction never helps, and it always creates disconnection between me and my kids, which is the opposite of what they need in that moment, right? But hey, we're human. Parents always ask me, how do I get my kids to listen? Even though I am your coach, I don't have this answer. Honestly, I don't think there is an answer. You can't make your kids do anything. I mean, you can bribe, you can coax, you can manipulate them into doing certain things, right? But is this really the pattern we want to be modeling? The pattern that reinforces peer pressure or just blindly obeying? Not really. So then what? Well, as always, we have to start by looking inwards. Why is it so triggering when our kids don't listen? Maybe it's because we have this belief that kids are to fall in line and just respect authority. Valid. Or that we must be in control of our kids, and when we're not, that says something about us as their parent. Also valid. Many different thoughts and beliefs are going on for us when we feel insignificant or inadequate as parents. But until we bring these thoughts and feelings into our consciousness, they will determine how you react in those moments when your kids just don't want to hear what you're saying. So as always, it has to start with us as the parent. Now, while we can't make our kids listen, there are definitely some things we can do or at least think about to help our chances. The first thing to think about is how we model listening. I know this sounds silly. How can we possibly model something that happens so naturally? But hear me out. When our kids are talking to us, I want you to ask yourself, how often are you truly listening to what they're saying? I mean actively listening, not listening to respond, meaning you're not thinking about the next thing you're doing or the next thing you're going to say. You're not trying to fix or give them any unwanted advice. You're not in your own little world. Okay? Actually actively listening. This can look like eye contact, getting to their level, remaining curious, things like tell me more, staying open, and even repeating back a few words that you heard them say. I know we're busy and this seems insane, especially when we're talking about toddlers who literally talk all day long. But my point is to not stop your whole life every single time. It's just to have awareness on how often we're showing our kids how to listen. The next thing to think about is, what are we asking them to do? Is it something that is beyond their capacity at that moment? Let me give you an example. My daughter can get dressed by herself. No problem. She's been doing it for years. But on the mornings when she feels really tired and just does not want to get up, it is next to impossible to get her to get dressed for school. Now I know she can do it because I've seen her get on some very complicated princess dresses in about 10 seconds flat. So is it just that she's not listening to me? No, she's struggling. Likely her body feels all discombobulated and she needs some extra time. The hard part is there's a time crunch to get to school and now she doesn't have that extra time. So she feels even more frustrated, making it even harder to do the one thing I'm asking her to do. Some mornings I am also tired and I forget where she's at. And I do see it, as not listening. And then there's a big power struggle. I'm not perfect. And in the mornings when I get it, when I actually see her, I know getting dressed just feels extra hard right now. This gives me the space to meet her not listening with compassion instead of just the pure rage. Next, I want to talk about our tone. I know if my husband came up to me and said, "Go fold the laundry, please," and I didn't feel like folding the laundry at that moment, he would probably be met with a power struggle, one he'd likely lose. But on the flip side, if he said, "I'm wondering if you could fold the laundry tonight," I would be much more likely to agree. Now, the hard part here is when we make requests like this one, we have to be willing to hear a no. And when that no comes up, it is our responsibility to accept it and then continue the conversation to come to an agreement where everybody feels heard. And that might sound like, "I hear you're not ready to clean your room. When would work better, before dinner or before story time?" And then follow through. This leads me to the last part, the follow through. When our kids don't listen and we repeat ourselves 10 times, we are conditioning our kids that they don't have to listen until that 10th time when we finally lose it. So while it's not always easy because we're never going to be perfect, make every attempt to follow through on your requests the first time. For example, if your kids are jumping up and down on the couch, it might sound like, "Please stop jumping on the couch." Then they continue. You walk over, you gently take them off the couch. The couch is for sitting, whatever, right? There's a million different scripts out there to support you in getting your kids to listen. My hope for this video is to provide some thought-provoking suggestions. But as always, nothing is going to work every time. Our kids are wired to push the envelope, and that isn't going to change. It is 100% developmentally appropriate for our kids to test our limits. The responsibility is on us as the parent to have an understanding of what it is going on underneath instead of just reacting in threats and power struggles and punishments. If you're showing up in trigger and struggling to find that curiosity and that compassion, let's talk. Click the link below.